It's a different type of politics that exists in the United States. No doubt really interesting. For many of us, this would be the first time in our lifetime since the Bill Clinton scandal that a U.S. president would face a possible impeachment. Many countries look up to the United States as defender of the weak, the voice of justice, and the guardian of the ideals of democracy. What are they learning now from what's going on? I had a chat with former permanent secretary at the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi, concerning this. Ambassador Joe Keshi, thank you for speaking with us on Diplomatic Channel. What are we learning from what is going on in the United States as regards the impeachment inquiry looming over President Donald Trump?
Again, thank you for having me on your program. We are learning a lot, but let me just restrict it to, for me, the major one is the strength of U.S. institutions. The Office of the Inspector General, most of the departments have such an office. And if they've raised an alarm that the President of the United States is endangering the country, by asking foreign entities to probe an American citizen, and they did not compromise. They were not afraid of being dismissed. And this is why, if you look at what has been happening since Donald Trump came to power, he's been trying to undermine virtually every state institution. But the institutions have refused. They've actually been putting a check as much as they can without encroaching on presidential powers. Donald Trump believes that as a president, he has all the powers to do, quote him, whatever I want to do. But the institutions are saying, no, there's a limit to presidential powers. And they stand as that limit that you cannot do this, you cannot do that, and the rest. For me, I think that is one major lesson for those of us watching from outside the United States needs to look at, particularly from this country, that the institutions of state are very powerful and they hold a check on the presidency and those who want to abuse power.
Yeah, I know the last time we actually heard, well, for most of us in our lifetime, last time we witnessed American lawmakers go after a sitting president with an impeachment inquiry and with an impeachment proper is President Bill Clinton. What President Trump has done, is it much worse than what Clinton did?
Oh yes, probably worse than, the Clinton impeachment. But the unfortunate thing in this case is that the Republicans are not ready to work with the Democrats to really probe President Trump. And I think why that is so is mainly because, they dealt with, the Mueller report was dealt with Trump in a kid-gloves manner. So President Trump did not get it. It is far, far more serious. Because, look, if you look at what happened from the Mueller report, the Mueller investigation was the fact that it's against the law for foreign entity to interfere in the U.S. elections.
But it didn't prove that there was foreign interference.
No, it proved that there was interference, except that there was no, actually, not that there was no proper link. Yeah, no, again, because, look, they could have indicted him for a number of things in connection with that report. But because the Department of Justice had this established rule over the years, you cannot indict a sitting president. So it was kind of left fluid. But the point to be made here is that President Trump, without getting what's the word now? I guess he felt that, I can do, his philosophy as president, I can do anything. And he now decided again to ask a foreign entity to investigate, an American, not because there was any sign of corruption. Even all day today and yesterday in a number of newspapers, it was still being emphasized that there is no shred of evidence that what they did was corrupt. But he was just looking for something that he will use against a presumed or possibly a presumed opponent during the election.
In the eyes of the rest of the world, America is a champion for democracy. They are the a helper of the oppressed. People look up to them as, their role model for everything good and what is right. What do you think countries make of America now as it goes through this period, this season of impeachment with President Donald Trump?
The America you described in the early part of your question was an American gone by. It is not Trump's America. Trump's America doesn't believe in human rights. Trump's America doesn't believe in fighting corruption. So if you look at everything President Trump has done, it's actually to undermine democracy itself. And I don't know where I have heard Trump talking of upholding democracy seriously. You can look at the situation, the killing of the Saudi Arabian journalists and so on. Yeah, you can look at the way the Trump administration reacted. You can look at the border incident and the rest of it, the way they've reacted. And there are so many examples. You could say that today's America, it's not talking of those values. And my fear is that by the time Trump leaves, America would have been in absolute decline, because it is not projecting that power to uphold these values. Trump is not making it completely transactional, and the rest of the world are beginning to learn how to deal with him, but not to America's advantage, but to the rest of the world. So when you look at the way China is handling, I have no doubt from day one that China will emerge victorious in this trade war. When you look at the inability, look, before, the United States would have been in a strong position to protect a country like Saudi Arabia following the recent bombing of the oil facilities and so on. Today, they can't.
Yeah, and back to that phone call with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, reading the transcripts, you could see him talk about how he looked up to Donald Trump and how he copied, the manner in which he ran his campaign. He applied that to the way he ran his own campaign, and he looked forward to closer relations, personal relations with the U.S. president. Is there a lesson here, perhaps, that we're not seeing about, the way President Trump ran his campaign that can be applied back home?
Well, it depends on where you are. Most leaders of the world and most people, they've learned to flatter Trump in order to get their way and so on. In the case of Ukraine, maybe, you could say it worked for the current president who won the election a few months ago and so on. But in other parts of the world, it might not work that the Trump strategy might not work that well. If you take, for example, Britain, in spite of all his braggadocios and everything, you can see that the British Prime Minister is heading nowhere with all what he wants to do with Brexit and so on. But I said earlier on that in some countries in Eastern Europe, there are leaders who believe they needed to be and behave like Trump. But in this part of the world, I really doubt it, whether, the Trump strategy, the Trump philosophy, the Trump administration will really work here. In some cases, there might be some subtle example you can give, even from our own in this country. But by and large, it's something that will easily put off a number of people when you find a president behaving like Donald Trump. And for all, look, no matter how bad we think our presidents have been, I don't think we've had one like Trump to start with,
President Trump's style of leadership is really different from many leaders, many world leaders. But do you think that, the way he goes about it could end up being to his own disadvantage?
I think you got to understand where Trump is coming from. You also got to understand that President Trump believes that the strategy he used the last time against Hillary worked for him. He also believes that the strategies he's been using since being president is keeping his base with him, and therefore there's no need for him to, to change. But perhaps the most important thing, and I've heard that a lot in this impeachment process, even those who've gone to speak to the president came away with the impression that the president doesn't get it, that he's not even aware of the amount of trouble he is in, and the rest. But when you look at what Congress is trying to do, particularly the lower house, the House of Representatives, it goes back to what I said at the beginning of this interview, the strength of the institutions of state. The members of the party are not, the Democratic Party are not bothered. They are not doing this because they hate Donald Trump. And they've been, the Speaker of the House has been very explicit on this, that this is to protect the Constitution. It is wrong for an American president to do what Donald Trump has done, and they really want to take him up. I'm not sure that the overall goal is to remove Trump, but I think the overall goal is to strengthen the institution of not just the Congress as the watchdog, but at least make future presidents realize that you cannot violate the Constitution and go scot-free.
In light of what is going on in America, how should Nigeria relate with the country?
Well, we are relating, we are relating very well, but we must also be very aware or careful and observe what is going on. Because you see, it's another election cycle. Sooner or later, I'm sure you're going to have a very weak president who will focus, in the United States, who will focus more on his re-election. And in any case, when you look at the last 4 years, there's been no defined African policy by the Trump administration. So really, we've just gone on a day-to-day basis, whatever we want or whatever we want to do, and we relate to the Americans. It's not like in the past when we had, quote and unquote, some special relationship and we know where we stand, where we stood with the Americans. So what we just need to do is mind our own business, do the things we need to do, look inwards. Look, there are so many things that we can do with other nations without actually bothering ourselves about the United States. But if we continue the way we are going as a beggar nation, that we sometimes appear as if we are helpless in everything and somebody must help us, that's the way we'll be treated, And quite frankly, President Trump has no interest in Africa.
In weak nations, actually.
No, in Africa, because some of the weak, quote and unquote, strong nations, look, he's threatening to impose sanctions on the EU. Those you can describe as his natural allies. Now, if he's doing that to his allies, he has no time for the rest of us. So we shouldn't look too much that there's going to be a lot from this administration, not in the near future. If there's a change of government, then I think we're in a good stand to, consolidate our relationship with whichever government comes up.
And we still need to strengthen our own institutions. Ambassador Joe Keshi, thank you for speaking with me.
Thank you very much, always. Thanks.